Hello and welcome back to Darkstorm Rising. Today we're going to be progressing and doing another miniature from the Death May Die box set. I am thinking about, once we actually get to the box set being complete and starting some gameplay, maybe filming an introduction into the game and how it is played. I've finished all of the characters now. I haven't done a video about those guys. I'll show you a picture somewhere of those characters in the finished product. So if you do like the look of them and would like to see them actually being painted and how I went about that, by all means just throw me a link and I'll look at doing whichever ones you would like to be seen done. I've so far done Cthulhu, the Starspawn, the Bayaki. We've also got the Hunting Horror painted. We've now got 6 of the Worshippers done. I think we're now at least over halfway through the box set. The main biggie that I haven't got done yet is Hastur and his guards. I'm looking forward to painting that. That is an awesome miniature. So really looking forward to that. But today what we're going to do, what we're talking about today, is getting the artwork done on the Worshippers themselves. Those guys who bring the entities into our world. The Cthulhu, I suppose, if you like, the Cthulhu equivalent of the Stormtroopers, the guys that always get defeated. Or maybe. So without further ado, to the table. So this is the level of quality I'm trying to aim for with all of the finished product. There is the sea of to do. I'm going to attack and see how far we can get and try to make an attempt at speed painting, but whilst trying to retain some quality. So we better get on. So this is going to be my first endeavour into speed painting. These guys sort of lend themselves, large big surface areas of the same colour, but it's going to be a bit of a change in process for me. It's going to be a bit more systematic in approach, so it's going to be much more of a conveyor belt of that single colour, move on to the next. But I'll show you one figure as we go through, and then I'll show you them all lined up as we sort of get towards the end of a batch. I've already got my paints arranged that I'm going to work with as the first few primary colours. So let's crack on and start with the initial one. So this is Evil Red by Vallejo, and we'll just liberally attack the miniature. The two like sash that runs around, that's going to be in a different colour, but virtually everything else on the model is going to be red in the end. So I will run around the whole model, just gently applying and making sure that I get a wet enough brush. Let's get to a nice big area. I'm still going to try and keep a thin line of black at the edge. So where I go there, it's not just slapping the colour on. I'm still trying to maintain some free borders, if you want, and it will help just keep the figure outlined and defined and make them look better when they're on the tabletop. Right, so I'll work around this miniature. So the first miniature, 8 minutes just to get that dark layer on. A little bit slow there, but we'll plough on and see how much longer for the other 4. So that's all 5 miniatures now base coated for a fairly consistent 8 minutes a piece. So now what we'll do is we'll start to put on the first colour tones, and then we'll replicate that across all models. So I'm going to get barring disasters, some of the Evil Red and mix it with some of the Scarlet Blood, and then we're going to work around the model, working from the top of the shoulders, ignoring those shadowed areas, catching the edge here where the light would find. And just gently I want to start from the top because I want to run out of paint as I hit the bottom of the robes. Because I want to try and maintain a darker colour at the bottom and make it look a little bit more of a sinister figure, which obviously being occultists is exactly what's going on. So what I'm going to do is just gently stroke as I hit the bottom of the rose and not leave a great deal of paint behind. And then when I go to the upper areas, I'm going to wander over into my more the right hand side of my palette where there's more red, and I'm going to take a little bit more red across with me. And just catch these leading edges. So I'll replicate this step across this image, miniature, on all these surfaces, and I'll come back to you before I move on to the next step, which will be sort of going into a bit more highlights of the red. But the general rule of thumb will be to have I'll have a more stronger red on this side of the palette, and I'll leave those upper surface areas high up on the miniature that are upper surface areas in that red, and then I'll come back over to this side of the palette for when we're working on the bottom portion of the miniature. And again, any deep recesses and just underneath where the cape falls here, we'll leave those a little bit darker. Now this is really, it's a wet blending process, so we don't really want to be moving on to the next miniature at the end of the first process. What we need to be doing is progressing on into the higher highlights. So we'll get some more paint over here. Water, it's very important that you keep your brush mobile and wet. I'm going to swap to one of the standard Artis Opus brushes now, just a little bit more control. And then what we'll do is we're going to go over the red. But now just with the scarlet blood. I'm just literally going to go around the whole model and just pick out all of those upper surface areas in a much more vibrant set of colours. Just slowly work our way around the miniature doing that. So I've now gone back and finished the hood. We'd forgot that bit last time I showed you the miniature. So I've gone back and introduced the hood, and now we're on to the second coat, which is now we're using pure red, which is the scarlet blood. Plenty of water on here. I've diluted it down quite significantly on the palette, and what we'll do is we'll start off towards the top. Really a decent, quite a strong tone, quite a decent amount of paint going on. Nice reasonable pressure on the brush. When we move over onto the long sections, we'll refill the brush, but what we're going to do is we're going to put on a decent amount of weight into the brush towards the top end, so we get quite a lot of paint coming off. And then as we come towards the bottom of the figure, we'll get gentle with our strokes. And also what we'll try and do is try and make sure the work we've been doing is towards the end of this session on this particular section of brush, so the reservoir in the brush is quite empty and it's not going to leave a lot of paint behind. And then the idea will be that we slowly keep going back to the top end, increasing the vibrancy at the top, and then tailing off whenever we start to do anything up towards the bottom, and try to apply less brush strokes as well. And then we're sort of trying to aim for this sort of high tonality with low tonality at the bottom. I'll work around the rest of the miniature and then we'll come back when it's all done. So having been around the model, you can see towards the bottom we're very much darker, just with accents of red to show where the folds are. And then as we head towards the top, we've filled in a few of the folds just to emphasise that light is striking there. So quite pleased with that. I think what we will do is just add a little bit of Wild Rider Red by Citadel. Get a bit of the Scarlet Blood, mix those two together, and then literally just on the very upper highlighted areas, just bring a bit of extra accent colour in. And I'll work across the shoulders and the top of the hat and back in a sec. So as I've said, I've literally just been over the top of the hat and the shoulders just to re-emphasise the colour. That will saturate the paint that's already on there because it's still not completely dry, and it will even itself off. So the next thing that we're going to do is, I think before we do anything else, we'll get the eyes and the face done because they're going to be one of the biggest nightmares on this figure. So to get the eyes done, I'm going to use Artis Opus M series size 1 brush, plenty of moist jet on the brush and then dry it off. And just using the very tip of the brush. And then repeat that process for all 6 miniatures. So it's just gently a dab across the centre of the eye and a dab above the eye, and it should give you 2 tiny little lines, but it will make it look like the eye is present there. And then it's literally then grabbing a nice vibrant green. I'm going to go with a bit of emerald. You can use blue or brown if you want, but that'll give you enough definition of colour to call it a pupil. We've just got to be very careful with our dotting of the eye. Okay. So fortunately everybody is wearing very long ceremonial robes, a pair of gloves, which only leaves sort of eyes and mouth to paint. So what I'm going to do is get a little bit of Vallejo Gory Red first, and just very carefully place that on the tongue. Because being a worshipper, he's got a message to share, so his mouth is nice and wide open. We'll go over to dark flesh tone to set the rest of the skin around there. So just gently do his top lips. And his chin. Then we'll get a little bit of medium flesh tone with a tiny bit of gory red. We'll just go back in and pop a little line
on his bottom lip. Then we'll get a little bit of light flesh tone and medium flesh tone, and we'll pop a tiny line on his top lip. And if you look at most people in the real world, and you'll get a better general look with your figure if you tend to do your top lip a paler colour and your bottom lip with a little bit of a tone of colour in it. Okay, for the one guy who does have hands, I'm going to get some dark flesh tone and cover the whole of the hand in the dark flesh tone. Just stroke over the fingers just to try and get the relief between the fingers to cause some natural lines. And just catch the sides of the hand. Just make sure you got the gap between the web of the fingers and the thumb. And then what we'll do, just one second, what we'll do is we'll then go on to dwarven flesh tone, mix a tiny little bit in with the dark flesh tone, and then we'll go over each of the fingers. And as we hit the hand, join the shading up. And catch the floor. Over the inside of the hand, onto the palm. So try and dot the lunar pad and the opposite side pads separately, and then do the top of the palm in a single colour. And then we'll get some pale flesh tone. Just gently dot in the fingernails. Right, and I've got just where there's the inside of the hand here and the edge of the thumb, and then there's a little bit of a fault in the plastic on the tips of the finger where there's a little bit of black. Got a little bit on the wrist as well, just a bit of sunshine catching in. Okay. And we'll do his other hand just the same, and then we're moving on to the jewellery. So all of them have this little scarf around the neck. So we'll grab some brown sand by Vallejo, and we will just gently work that onto the scarf. And then as we get towards the end, we want quite an abrupt line where the metalwork starts. And then we'll grab some bone white and we'll just put a little bit of it highlighted in there. We'll go around all the other models. And then we'll come back and do some metal work. So the gold work is fairly straightforward. We're going to use scrofulous brown, and it's literally this short segment here, which is sort of on my worshippers. It's a little bit of gold connecting to the main silver pendant. So I'm just going to keep reinforcing it until I'm happy that it's nice and yellow. And then I'm going to grab some pale flesh, and then I'm just going to dot the corners where the light would reflect. And then we'll go back in with the scrofulous and just re-accent the darker areas again. I'll just do the opposite side. And again, pick up with the pale flesh. And we'll go back in with the scrofulous and just reinforce underneath those highlights. And then for the silver work, we will use two greys. We'll use London grey and a blue pale grey. And just gently, again, just drawing in. the artwork on the pendant. And then we'll grab the blue-grey pale grey. And this is going to be our highlight colour. I'm just catching on the upper surface our hue. So we'll just grab the pale grey and we'll wipe off as much excess as we can, and then we'll go back in onto the London grey and just pick out corners and upper facing straight lines where the light would tend to reflect. Okay, I'll just go back in and just reinforce the locks. It does tend to sink into the London grey a little bit, and we do want it to be a fairly obvious pop of colour. There we go. So we'll do the same to the artwork on the front and on the back of his hood, and that hopefully will then turn out. Oh, it's also got a small piece on his throat as well. That will turn out a little bit more like that, and exactly the same two colours for the buttons down the bottom of the gown as well. And just a tiny dot of the pale grey green, or is it grey blue, sorry, on there as well. And then we'll come back and we'll do the book. So that leaves us with just the book to do. So what book is he reading from? Well, in this case we're going to go for the Necronomicon, so we're going to go for skin tones on the outside and then page colours obviously on the inside. So we'll start with dark flesh tone on the outside, and just tap that gently so that it actually, there's quite a lot of recesses on the front of this book. So we'll just tap until we get it in, and obviously this is aged flesh, so it's just going to be like just quite tatty in appearance in general. Just be careful of where we've already painted it. Can't see if I say something stupid like that I'll slip and catch something. And then we'll just run some of the dark flesh tone round the edges of the front of the book, just with the side of the brush. Okay, I'll leave that, and while that's drying, we'll get some dark sand and we'll paint the pages in dark sand and just give them a slap up coat to start with. Right down into the groove, into the spine, and then we'll leave that to dry and we'll come back in a moment. Okay, so for the face of the book, we're going to go back to our dark sand and just do not a perfect cover. This is the second coat, and it's just literally it needs to be a rough cover so that you can still see blemishes and blotches. Okay, that's lovely. And then the other side, we started to do a few skin tones. My palette's looking rather a mess, so I'm going to quick flip it round and we'll get a few new skins back on there. And the colours that we're going to be needing are already on the palette. We've got pale flesh, we'll have some medium flesh, and a little bit of dwarven skin. And we may even pinch a little bit of gory red as well. All the layer colours. And it's going to be somewhat of a scrappy mix of all of the above. So we'll go in with the red first. Just a general smattering into some of the recesses. And then we'll get the medium flesh, a little bit of blood in there as well. And you can see the gory red on the page, on the back of on the cover of the book. And then I'll wipe off some excess on me. And then we'll just tap it onto the book. And then we'll get a little bit of pale flesh. And just highlight the corners of the book. And then back to the front, and we've got our sand colours still over here. So we put the dark sand down, and now we'll go to the pale sand. And it is literally just tapping away there. Don't go near the spine, we want to keep the spine nice and dark. And then we'll go back to the dark sand, get the brush to a nice fine tip, and then down the pages just draw on some very, very thin lines. And for that, you're really going to want some moisture on your brush so you can get a nice fine tip. a bit awkward to draw at this angle, to be honest. But we've managed it. Okay, and then we'll get a little bit of either ivory or bone white, and then just near the edges just highlight the periphery of the pages, and then the final step will be once that's dried. In the meantime, I'm going to give my brush a good clean. Now, the secret ingredient to just finish the book recipe off is going to be Army Painter Strong Tone by Army Painter. And we'll give it a good blob on there. And then we'll get a brush. And run it onto the book. Nice chunky blob. Then sit your brush back in it. And just move it around the page a bit. And then just leave that to dry. And rinse and repeat with the rest of the librarians in attendance. And then we'll come back once that's had a chance to dry. Okay, and then now for the final touches to the page, what we're going to do is, like in ye olde medieval books, we will do some large calligraphized arty lettering, and we'll start over here with a nice big green letter, and then what we'll do is we'll get some dark or burnt skin tone with a bit of the gory red, tiny bit of black we'll drag over as well, and then it's just pretending to write sentences. So we'll do short word, long word, short word, long word, and just scribble brokenly across the page. And that will do us. If it was for anything more sophisticated, we might spend a bit more time on it, but this is literally for a tabletop miniatures game, so I think that'll do us for there. So I suppose we want to look at how many figures we've painted and talk about the time. Well, I've managed to get 6. Oh, there is 6 of these guys finished. It's taken me most of the day on and off, so probably altogether, I don't know, probably about an hour to an hour 15 each, something like that. But I don't think that's actually too terrible, to be honest. And the quality of them is not too heinous. So we'll put them on a turntable, show you them when they're all finished.
So I had a go at seeing how many I could do in a single batch and seeing if it was timely. I think we probably averaged around about an hour and a quarter-ish per miniature. So that's probably taking about 3/4 of an hour off how long I would normally spend. I still think I've maintained the quality, quite pleased with that. If you did enjoy the video and you like the figures, please do like and subscribe, and please do help grow the channel. I'm looking forward to continuing through all of the Death May Die box sets and bringing you artwork from those. I've got till August of this year. Happy New Year, everybody. I've got till August of this year to get all of the boxes finished, ready for the new box set coming out, which I've ordered, including the big Cthulhu miniature. I plan to redo the Cthulhu video. I do want to get that one done again. I've got an idea for a different style of colour with that. But what are we doing? Are we painting minis yet? Hell yeah! And I guess I'll catch you in the next one.